Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So the Alien franchise, why has it plummeted so badly, in my opinion? And I'm here to just talk about that. And if you are new here, drop a like, subscribe if you like this kind of content. I've done a lot of stuff on Alien, on Predator, and some other bits that I like. There's plenty of videos up there for you to all enjoy. I'm looking to grow the channel, obviously, to 1,000 subs if possible. It's a bit of a hobby for me, this. Obviously, I don't do this as a job or anything like that. So yeah, just keen to see the channel grow if possible. I've got a little community here and I really appreciate everybody that comments. I love sort of open debate in the comment section. I never delete anything. I like to see everybody's opinions. If they say I'm trash or I'm some sort of shill or I'm a hater, anything like that, I quite enjoy it. I think it's quite fun. Yeah, I find the whole YouTube thing quite fun. So back to the Alien franchise. So look, I don't need to go into too much detail about the first two Alien films. Look, I was never around when the original Alien came out. I'm obviously too young. Look at me. I joke, I'm pretty old, but I was not around for when that came out. And it's amazing, holds up to this day. I watched it again very recently. I must have seen it about 10 times anyway, but I've watched it again recently. I saw it just after I watched episode 5 of Alien Earth. And it's really interesting to see how much better it was made back in '79. Just everything was better. They knew the limitations of what a man in a suit looks like, and they had limitations to what they could do with the suit. But what I find incredible is how much better it looked in '79 compared to what it looks like now in 2025. And I don't know if it's just a case of budget or comparable budget to the time, or it's actually because of its limitations or what they had in terms of the limitations that they had, it somehow made it better. But I just think it was better craftsmanship, better filmmaking, a better understanding of what looks scary and what is scary. And seeing too much of the alien just isn't scary. So obviously the first one is a complete classic. We start Ripley's story. We find out obviously about the alien universe as such. We find about Weyland-Yutani and all these good things. And then we go Aliens, which again, an amazing film. Not so much horror. I would say more of a sort of action sci-fi. James Cameron, really, really good. Again, the aliens looked fantastic. They expanded the lore a bit. We saw the colonial marines. Just everything about it was great. And of course, the Queen Alien, just fantastic. So many quotable things. Fantastic film. And I actually prefer the original, but Aliens is great because there are just great scenes in that, which are iconic, great moments. But also, I thought that they did take it to the next level in terms of as a lore and the canon. I thought they really added to the Alien universe, and that sort of bred more comics. It bred all of these different things, and it really opened the door to what we have today, I would say, with Aliens. I think ever since then the franchise has gone downhill. We've had a lot of good entries, of course, in some people's minds, but in my mind I actually really enjoy Alien 3. I think it has a fantastic sort of close to Ripley's story. I think it's a good... Bear in mind it went through production hell, right? I think it had a really good, solid vibe about it. It felt very claustrophobic, felt like Alien. It was intense. It had that sort of dread feeling. And the Xenomorph, despite them getting it wrong with some of the CGI in that, it still was scary. It still had that eerie feel about it. And it was very much survival horror. The Xenomorph was fantastic, actually. And again, brought us that extremely iconic visual of the Xenomorph and Ripley's face together. I love that. A lot of people will not like Alien 3, and that's fine. Drop that in the comments. Like, I again have no problem. And then obviously we had a bit of a break. We thought the Alien franchise was essentially done. You know, there was a good knot tied up in that. It sort of run its course. There was lots to expand on. There were lots of comics, there were lots of ideas, there were games in the works, all this kind of stuff. But then we got Alien Resurrection. Now, if I'm honest, this is probably the film that, I was older, right? So I was looking forward to this one. This film, at the time, I thought it was fantastic because I was a small child. Everything to do with Alien was fantastic, but over time you rewatch them and you get a different idea. I love what they were going for in Resurrection. Completely fresh ideas. which is great. You need fresh ideas. You can't keep going with the same thing. And I loved seeing the Xenomorphs. I loved the underwater Xenomorph. Even to this day, I think that's pretty cool. I really enjoyed seeing the two Xenomorphs kill the other Xenomorph in order to get out of the entrapment they were in on the ship. No, I'm not using all the words correctly, I know, but that was a really, really good scene. It showed that the aliens were slightly more intelligent than what we originally thought, or at least attempted to show us more intelligence than we'd ever seen. And it was just a quirky film. Yeah, so quite enjoyable for lots of the different reasons. It wasn't horror. It was very much a film of its time. Like, it hasn't aged particularly well. I would say it's more of a comedy if you watch it now. It's funny. There are some stupid moments. It hasn't aged brilliantly, but because of that, it's fantastic. But it also brought us the newborn, which everybody knows is the marshmallow alien that Ripley sort of is the queen of, or the mother of rather. And it just sucks, right? It sucks. It's a horrible scene, like really weird scene that gets sucked out of the ship at the end. Just tragic, right? So you've got those 4 Alien films, and you went with 2 good ones, one which I would say I love but is very average, and then the 4th, no matter what your opinion of it, whether you love it or not, it is actually just a bad film. So we've actually only got 2 good films in the franchise at this moment in time. Okay, so now we're opening this up, and then we get Prometheus. Now, again, Prometheus I think is a fantastic film if you take away the fact that it's part of Alien. I loved that film. I loved the visuals. I like the ideas of it. I like how humanity itself is questioned. I really enjoyed the concepts behind the film. However, when you tie in the engineers, which again, great, the space jockey, really tying it into Alien, but then you create the black goo, which I absolutely hate. Done videos on that and how much that, to be honest, has killed the Alien franchise for me, in terms of that idea has kind of killed the mysterious sort of qualities of the Xenomorph. And then you've got the Deacon and all of these different things, and again David in there, the synth, really basically creating or starting to create the Xenomorph. That's what we kind of sort of find out from Prometheus, that there was a mural, but it seems to be the Deacon. It isn't clear if it's the Xenomorph. We're not really sure. We're left with loads of like questions that need answering, but the visuals are fantastic. The idea is fantastic. It's just not executed perfectly. But if you were to take Alien away from it, I think Prometheus is great. Like I've made a video on it. I really enjoy Prometheus. I can rewatch it all the time. I think it's a really well-made film. Just tying it into Alien and Aliens and the Alien universe, I just think is a bit of a stretch. Because the technology, and I know they explain that out, but it just, for me, there's too many gaps, too many plot holes, it breaks the canon too much of what we knew about the franchise, and I think you shouldn't really look to go back and break that, in my opinion. And Ridley Scott has this opinion that obviously he created it because obviously he was the director of the film, but he didn't really create Alien, we know this. He just was lucky enough and did a great job directing it. So he I guess he's been drinking the Kool-Aid there of his own sort of AI, synth, Blade Runner type stuff. And I think he just veered off a bit too much. And then Covenant is a bad film, first and foremost. It is a bad film. Not very good. Some really good moments, like we're on the ship and you have the backburster and you've got the Neomorph, something slightly different, but the CGI use is pretty poor. Again, we see a Xenomorph in daylight. Ultimately, I know he was asked to push the Xenomorph into that because he said the beast is dead. But I didn't enjoy that film, really, at all. It was not original. It basically went down all the wrong routes in terms of, when I say not original, nothing with the Xenomorph in it was original. We'd seen that all before, so had no value add. In fact, it looked kind of terrible, and we saw it in daylight again for the first time, and all that sort of stuff absolutely hated. But again, we were going down the black guru, and we've killed off the engineers on that planet. Yes, a lot of people argue whether they're engineers or not. I've seen a review on Mr. H's channel where someone who is on the set making it is very clear that it was a planet of engineers, and of course fan theory goes, oh, but it's not the right clan of engineers, it was a different sort of clan and all of this good stuff. And I'm like, okay, great, using our imagination to create up new stuff, great, that's what fandoms do, but I think we're stretching when clearly the director wanted it to be a group of engineers there. I think that is the symbol that is the engineers, and David wipes them out of the black goo. And then goes on to create the Xenomorph, or a form of Xenomorph. Again, not exactly profoundly explained that he is the creator. It's just really heavily implicated, but again, fans don't like it, so they're finding a way around it as if he's just replicated what's already out there. But I think, again, the message was that David essentially has created the Xenomorph, and I hated that. The black goo, everything about it, just really, really shit in my opinion. The film was dumb, stupid, and again, not as intelligent as all the films that had come before it. So that's what we had. And then, look, we've had games as well. Games that were coming out, they were fantastic. Some of them were anyway, like Alien Isolation. Fantastic game. But look, I'm not talking about that. That they extended, of course, the Alien franchise. That's great stuff. But then we got Romulus. And again, I didn't like Romulus. Reason being is it was just a knockoff, a cheap version of what, accumulation of what we'd seen before. They took, for me, some of the best parts, but a lot of the bad parts, and put it all into a film. And what we got was, I guess, a like Gen Z Alien type film, where very young, clean-looking people, teenagers, if you like, fighting or coming against aliens in space, and it didn't feel original in any way, shape, or form. And it didn't sort of light the fire inside of me as an Alien fan. Like, I didn't like it, and I hated the Offspring, the black glue creation. Hated that. And a lot about the film I didn't like. There are a few things that I did like. I liked Andy, the synth. I thought that was a very well acted part. I thought he was a good character, to be honest. The rest, to be honest, I've forgotten a lot about it. I haven't watched it apart from the 2 times when it came out, basically. I watched it sort of back to back so I could get a review on, which I put on there. And the reasons why I didn't like it and everything wrong with it. There's just too many plot holes. The timing of it, it's not a prequel, it's not a sequel, it's something different, and it runs parallel to the universe, so to speak. And it doesn't do anything to kill the canon or affect the canon or the lore, but it kind of is like a fan's. And Alvarez did a great job in terms of, like, he wanted to do a good job. A bit like Dan Trachtenberg with Predator, right? Trying to do a good job, but actually isn't doing a good job. You can see that they care about the franchise, but they're taking it in the route that I personally wouldn't as a real fan. And that doesn't mean that it's shit, but it means it's shit to me. And it's my channel, so I'm telling you how I feel. Otherwise, why bother listening, right? So, yeah, I didn't like it. I thought it got some horror elements in there, and some sci-fi in there, but some of it didn't make sense. It was all a bit shit, cheap, and I'm glad it's resurrected if you pardon the pun, resurrected the franchise a little bit, and it has done. That's why we got Alien Earth, right? And Alien Earth, I've been and done those videos, man. That show is shocking. There were some really promising moments. There were some bits that I really enjoyed. There were some bits that I thought were going to be fantastic, but ultimately, it was a pile of shit. Now, why have I made this video? Well, I just wanted to basically say it and cap it off with what we actually have. And everyone knows this, that we have only 2 Alien films. But ultimately, when you have so much selection of aliens, so we've got Alien Earth, Covenant, Prometheus, we have Romulus, and we have the 4 sort of OG alien films. That's a lot of programs and films, and for more than 50% to be considered shit by the fans, what we actually have is a shit franchise. It just started really well, but it's actually just a shit franchise, and I can't believe I'm saying that because I love it, right? But ultimately, that's what we have. So with all these entries, haven't even thought about how many that is, right? So you've got the first 4, then you got Prometheus, Covenant. So there you go, there's 6, and then you've got Romulus 7, then you've got Alien Earth, which is, I guess, we'll call it 8 entries, but then you've got the AVP stuff, which is shocking, which I don't really want to talk about. I don't consider it alien lore at all, but you've got the AVP stuff. So you've got all of those things, and to only have two good, solid movies out of all that screen time, like God knows how much screen time there is. Let's just call it 20 hours, and you've got, what, 4 hours at best that are actually really good. The rest is like dog shit. Then you've got to say that it is a monumental failure. And two films that have created this complete sort of cultural classic and an icon in the Xenomorph and the Queen alien and Ripley as a character. You've got these three things that have come out of this franchise that are huge to this day, right? We're talking about from the late 70s to now, where we're talking close to 50 years, right? Almost 50 years this franchise has existed, and most of it is shit. That is horrible when I think about it, because it's something that I love. Like, I've got comics, I've got pictures, I've got all these things, and realistically the majority of it is shit. And it's one of those things that we're so lucky that we got the good stuff first, because if it had been a flip, obviously we would never have got any of this stuff, but ultimately this franchise would have been dead on arrival. And I don't know, I think if I was young, would I be a fan of Alien? And when I say young, I mean if I was in my if I was 18 to sort of early 20s and I was just watching this stuff for the first time, Alien Earth, Romulus, Prometheus, that kind of stuff. No, I wouldn't be a fan. I would think it's like junk, basically. There's better stuff out there. There's better solo horrors, there's better sci-fis that you can catch up on. Like, for example, Life. If I'd seen Life before I'd seen Alien, I would say Life is way better than this modern Alien stuff. Life is a fantastic film if you haven't seen it. It's a complete knockoff to Alien. And Sputnik as well. Again, another rip-off to Alien, but a really good film if you like subtitles, right? So these films are way better. I can see why youngsters today, or the youth, or people that are film enthusiasts, are not interested in going back. Because actually, why would you? You've got all of these other films to see, and they're not interested in these classics, and all you've watched is some shitty versions of Alien, and exactly the same with Predator, some shitty versions of the films, and you're just like, nah, this stuff ain't interesting, it's not good, so therefore why would they invest time? So that's why eventually these franchises will die out, or they're going to change, which is what they're going to do, right? So we're getting this Alien Earth type bullshit. And on the Predator side, we're getting that Predator universe type shit, which is making it into more Star Wars, because all of the cult fans, like us, who kind of watched it as it came out or just after or as kids growing up, they're not getting that now. They are literally not getting that, because you've got parents of these children that are not showing them these films when they're young. And I remember when I was young, when I was 18 or 14, whatever it is, I didn't really like classics so much. They were a bit old and dated, unless it was an absolute, like, Godfather or something like this. And even then, it was only sort of 10 years before when I was born. So it's not completely out of the question. Whereas if you are someone who is 20, you're asking them to watch something that is, 25 years sort of older than them in terms of before they were even born. That's when it was 25 years old before they were born. It's difficult to get them to watch that, right, and have buy-in when they can watch any old shit that's coming out now that aligns more to their culture, their values and things like that. So anyway, that's just a bit of a rant from me about how it's a real shame, but the Alien franchise isn't interesting anymore. It just isn't interesting for people like myself or people that are young. It's kind of lost the plot. It's lost what it was. And that's a real shame. I'm not interested because they're veering away from what it was. And they're veering away from what it was because not enough people were interested, because they're basically dead and dying out, those old film buffs. And yeah, it's a real shame. And the franchise is going to essentially change into something unrecognisable and maybe survive, a bit like Star Wars, and maybe survive, but ultimately it only survives in name, but it's actually dead. They're just using it as a shell. Basically, Alien Predator is just the shell, but actually what's inside has nothing to do with Alien and Predator anymore. It's a completely different thing, completely different lore, completely different franchise, and what we're watching is something as a disguised as, basically. Anyway, I'm just old, I'm ranting, and if you liked it, subscribe, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Peace out.